If I asked you right now, what's your process for dealing with pain? What would you say? You could even like pause this podcast right now and you could like take your best shot at, this is my process for dealing with pain. And if I said, what's your process for forgiveness as well? What would you say to me? Now, I think forgiveness and working through pain are some of the most misunderstood things in our lives today. Most people learn forgiveness basically from their parents and from the church. And it looks a little bit like this, like we have this obligation to forgive people that have hurt us because we've been forgiven so much. And before you shut this podcast off and be like, gosh, this sounds like he's about to preach heresy, I'm not. So it is true, right? That we need to forgive just as Christ has forgiven us, right? Because we have been forgiven of so much, but we often use forgiveness as this blanket that we throw over our whole entire life, right? So this happens a lot. I see it in the church a lot. Someone gets saved. Part of the process to them getting saved is we have them pray this prayer. They say like, God, would you come into my life and would you forgive me for the things that I've done wrong? And I choose to forgive everyone who's wronged me in my life. Now, on one side of the coin, there's nothing wrong with that prayer. And I often think that it's genuine. I think people really want to do that. But the challenge is that there's levels to forgiveness. And the first level is definitely that choice level, right? That choice where you go, man, this person has wronged me so much, but I'm going to make a decision to forgive you. Okay. How effective is that choice? Like, how effective is it to go throughout your life and just live on that choice level? Well, for some people, in certain circumstances, it can be fairly effective. But what happens when you live a life where, man, you were really wronged? You lived a traumatic past. You were molested, you were raped, you were whatever, divorced, left, walked out on. I mean, life is full of crazy abuse. And when we apply forgiveness like a blanket, right? When you just throw it over your whole entire life, what ends up happening is that little boy inside of you who was really wronged and taken advantage of never has an opportunity to have a voice. And I know this may sound weird if you've never heard something like this before, but if my son was beat up really bad, my little boy, if he was beat up really bad by some bullies at school, and he came running to me, you know, he's got a black eye, he's got a broken arm, he's got some bruised ribs, and was like, Dad, I hate those guys. I wouldn't be like, whoa. No, like you just need to forgive them. And he's like, wait, what do you mean? I'd be like, no, son, you've been forgiven of so much. Like, I know those boys just beat you up, but like, you need to get over this. Like that's not anything I would ever do to my kids. And yet we do that all the time to ourselves and then wonder why we say things like forgiveness is like an onion. You just have to peel it forever. Like you just have to constantly, like over and over and over again, say, I forgive you. Well, we end up in these places like that because we never actually address what really happened in our lives. Because we're never taught to, right? If you weren't given a process for dealing with pain that's effective, most people do this. Like if I say, what's your process for dealing with pain? They say, I take it to God. I'm like, okay, what's that mean? What is your actual process? for dealing with pain. If I have somebody in front of me, if I've got a couple in front of me and I'm counseling them, which this happens a lot, and they're in pain, and I say to them, you know what you need to do? You guys just need to take this to God. I've never had them be like, oh my gosh, why didn't we think of that? That is mind-blowing. That's revelatory. No. And it's not that you don't take stuff to God. It's how. How do you actually take it to God? I was teaching in our school of ministry, which Bethel School of Ministry, which is like a Bible college. And I was teaching these second year students. I was teaching this message to them. And I asked them, like, what do you do with your pain? And a student raises his hands and he says, I nail it to the cross. And I'm like, oh, great. Like, what does that mean? Like, how do you actually nail it to the cross? He's like, I don't know. I'm like, that's exactly the problem, because here's the deal. Like, and I'm not saying you don't pray about this stuff. I'm saying this is the problem, is we have so much theory. We have so much theory around these type of topics that we don't actually ever sit down and go, is this working? Is this repeatable? Is this effective? Am I in less pain? Am I in a place of prosperity in the places that were broken and bruised and busted up in my life? Like, I had a crazy past. I went through all this trauma and I worked through this pain and now I'm great. Like, if that's not your story, then your process needs tuning. It needs adjusting. And yet we rarely ever challenge these theories that we're told over and over again that don't really hold a lot of water.